For spine-chilling true tales of haunted boardwalks, discover the sinister secrets exposed. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a haunting scarlet, as the Thompsons strolled down the familiar boardwalk of their small New Jersey town. Mark and Sarah held hands while their two children, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Ben, laughed, oblivious to the ominous air that wrapped around them. But something felt wrong. The rides, once vibrant and full of life, loomed like forgotten giants, their peeling paint and rusted metal whispering of long-lost joys. The enticing scents of popcorn and cotton candy were replaced by a sinister chill that made their hearts race. As they passed the dilapidated games booth, Mark noticed the locals' furtive glances. Their eyes darted to the shadows lurking at the edges of the boardwalk, and whispers filled the air. Hushed conversations about missing persons. Just stories, he reassured his family, but the tension tightened like a noose around his chest. Every smile felt forced, every laugh echoing with dread rather than delight. "Look, Mommy! A poster!" Lily exclaimed, pointing at the crumbling wall of an abandoned storefront. An old faded advertisement screamed from the shadows, flaunting the glory of a festival long gone. Beneath its colorful graphics, the words "Never Forgotten" pulsed ominously, engraving themselves in their minds. Mark gripped Sarah's hand tighter. "It's just a legend, kids," he insisted, but Sarah's uneasy smile faltered. The arcade, their usual happy spot, lost its charm as they ventured inside. Then came the sinister feeling that they were being watched. It prickled at the nape of Mark's neck, sending icy daggers of dread coursing through him. Pushing back against panic, the family wandered to the outer edge of the boardwalk, where vibrant laughter faded into unsettling quietude. Suddenly, Ben ran off, chasing fireflies. Mark and Sarah exchanged worried glances before they followed, calling his name. What they found behind the rides made their hearts drop. An old, rotting wooden sign that bore names long forgotten, families that had vanished amidst the tragic history. A chill swept through the air as wailing rose from the shadows. It was a woman's cry, piercing through the stillness, chilling them to the bone. Mark's instincts kicked in. "We need to find help," he urged, guiding them towards the sheriff's station. Yet, as they arrived, laughter erupted from the officer, dismissing their fears as mere folklore. "You kids can't believe everything you hear," he chuckled dryly. The family stood there, their hope deflating like a popped balloon. Fear wrapped its icy tendrils around their hearts. The comforting facade of the boardwalk started closing around them. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The Thompsons turned back, desperate to leave the boardwalk behind. A shiver ran down their spines as shadows thickened, stretching toward them like grasping hands. Glancing over his shoulder, Mark grabbed Lily and Ben's hands. Eerie laughter echoed off the rides as flickering lights hummed an otherworldly song. Just when the darkness seemed impenetrable, Mark caught sight of something shimmering ahead, a way to escape. But as they approached, the shadows grew bolder, and the laughter turned sinister. "Get out!" a voice rang. Then familiar laughter joined, warm yet tainted. In that moment, they realized something terrible loomed ahead, lurking in the shadows, eager to claim them. Would they become the next names etched on the dreaded wooden sign? The boardwalk was hungry and it wasn't finished with them yet. As they stumbled deeper into the murky fear, one question gnawed at them: could they find a way back to the light, or were they destined to fade into the creeping darkness? They stumbled back from the flickering lights, but the shadows enveloped them. Mark's heart raced as he felt a cold wind whip around them, whispering threats that squeezed at his chest. Panic surged like a tide, drowning out the laughter of his children. The bizarre warmth around them twisted into an icy grip, dragging them deeper into the shadows. "Where do we go?" Sarah's voice trembled, barely rising above the sinister laughter still echoing in their ears. Ben reached for her, eyes wide and shimmering with fear, a mirror of Mark's own turmoil. Just hold on to each other," Mark shouted, his voice barely more than a croak. He squeezed their hands, trying to anchor them to reality. They looked around, desperate for a sign, path, or anything that resembled safety. Suddenly, from the depths of darkness, a figure appeared. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator following the scent of prey. The figure's outline sharpened in the twilight, and it was a woman. Her eyes glinted with a mesmerizing glow, swirling colors that felt both enticing and repulsive, drawing them in while repelling them with every step. "We are all waiting for you," she said, her voice a croaking melody that looped through the air, creating a suffocating atmosphere. She stretched her arms wide, almost inviting them closer. But something deep inside Mark screamed to move away. "Kids! Run!" he yelled, his instincts kicking into high gear as he pushed his family back towards the carnival rides, their metal frames losing their charm under the weight of encroaching despair. They raced past the rides, their laughter now a ghostly echo taunting them from behind. The vibrant colors had faded to a monochrome nightmare, the vibrant reds and blues morphing into deep shadows. With every breath, the air thickened, and Mark felt as if they were being watched. Lily's voice broke through the suffocating silence. "Daddy, look!" She pointed wildly toward an open doorway in one of the shuttered game booths. The flickering sign above it read "Fortune Teller," its words barely decipherable beneath grime and neglect. A glint of hope surged through Mark, and he led them toward it. Inside, the scents of dusty old curtains and stale incense clung to the air. The dim light cast eerie shadows against the worn walls. A crystal ball sat at the center, cracked but inviting, surrounded by fluttering drapes that seemed to whisper secrets. Mark's heart raced as he realized this might be their last chance, the only hope of finding answers to get them out of this nightmare. "Who dares enter?" a voice croaked from the corner, slicing through the tense atmosphere like a knife. The fortune teller emerged, her face shadowed under a moth-eaten shawl. "Secrets linger in the dark. What are you willing to sacrifice for the truth?" Mark's gut twisted. He looked at Sarah and the kids, their expressions mirroring his own fear. Again, that question clawed at him: was the truth worth the risk? Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet, and flickering lights danced wildly around them. The shadows were coming. They had to make a choice, and they had to make it fast. "Tell us!" Mark shouted, desperation coating his voice. "What do we have to do?" But the fortune teller only smiled, revealing crooked teeth. "Only the brave will find refuge," she said cryptically, waving her hand dismissively. The shadows surged closer, hungry and insatiable. As darkness closed in on them, Mark realized they were running out of time. Would they choose to confront the secrets of the boardwalk, or would they surrender, consumed by the very fears that haunted each parent's heart? Outside, the woman's laughter echoed again, swirling like a banshee's wail. "Get out before it's too late or become part of the legend." And just like that, they felt the ground shift beneath their feet, pulling them toward an uncertain fate. Would they dare delve deeper into the mysteries, or would they flee into their own despair? The shadows pressed in around them, cold and heavy as if they were being suffocated. Mark's breath quickened, fear clawing at his throat. He could feel it, the malevolence that dripped from the very walls of the fortune teller's booth. There was no escape. "Listen," he whispered to Sarah, his voice laced with urgency. "We have to stick together, no matter what." He looked into her eyes, searching for any flicker of hope, any sign that they could fight back. But dread mirrored his own desperation. Sarah's lips quivered, wordlessly pleading for reassurance that he couldn't offer. The children huddled close, their little bodies trembling. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside, like the world itself splitting open. The booth shook, rattling the crystal ball so fiercely it nearly toppled over. Mark instinctively stepped forward to catch it, but the fortune teller waved her hand dismissively. It has begun. You must decide. Decide what? Mark snapped, his voice rising to a near shout. We need a way out. Answer her. The fortune-teller's tone shifted, her smile fading as shadows crept closer, tendrils of darkness slinking around her ancient chair. What will you sacrifice? Enough of this. Mark shouted, adrenaline pulsing. The shadows recoiled as if his voice was a weapon, a temporary light in the darkness. We're not giving up anyone. But the fortune-teller leaned forward, eyes blazing with that unearthly glow. Not people. What binds you? What can set you free? The words hung heavy in the air. Mark's heart raced, the implication crashing over him like cold water. What were they willing to sacrifice? A fragment of their memories? A piece of themselves? What if we have nothing to give? Ben whimpered, glancing around as though the walls would swallow him whole. Then darkness takes you, the fortune-teller hissed, laughter escaping her lips sharp and mocking. You'll anchor your spirits to this cursed place, doomed to roam. Like all the others. A chill shot through Mark. He glanced at his children, desperate to shield them from the horrors lurking within their own fears. No! He shouted. We can't let them take us. We won't become another ghost story. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, casting wild shadows that shifted like angry serpents. The room began to swirl, distorting, darkness threatening to swallow them whole. Do you dare? The fortune-teller intoned, her voice echoing eerily as everything around them became a blur. Mark. The door. Sarah pointed wildly. It was swinging ajar, revealing the chaos outside, a writhing mass of shadows eager to consume anything in their path. Run! Mark shouted, snatching Lily's hand while clutching Ben, pulling them toward the door. But as they moved, the shadows surged forward, gusts of cold air clawing at their heels, desperate to pull them back. The fortune-teller's laughter echoed, a chilling melody that sank deep into Mark's mind. Only the brave can escape, only the brave, but was bravery enough? He felt the darkness tugging at them, dragging them back toward that cursed booth. He needed a plan. There had to be a way to turn the tide. With adrenaline pumping, Mark glanced back at the crystal ball, the fortune-teller's cryptic words echoing through his mind. What can set you free? He had to know. With one last push, he turned back, heart racing. Tell me. What do I need to sacrifice? The words burst from him, raw and desperate. The fortune-teller's smile widened, but before she could answer, the shadows roared, their grasp tightening like a vice. Outside, the world seemed to be collapsing under a storm of terror, and Mark realized time was running out. He had seconds to decide if he'd sacrifice everything to uncover the truth or let the darkness drag them down into eternal oblivion, and as the shadows surged, one last thought gripped him. What if everything he believed about bravery wasn't enough? The ground shook again, and with nothing left to lose, Mark felt a final flicker of resolve. Together! He shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. But as they rushed forward, the real question loomed. Large. What truly awaited them outside? A chance for survival or something much darker? And thus, with every step into the unknown, dread unfurled in his chest. Would they be brave, or would they face an even greater terror beyond the door? As they bolted through the door, an icy gust slammed into them, throwing Mark back a step. It was different outside, a twisted version of reality. The air shimmered with pulsating shadows, writhing like a living creature, hungry and relentless. Mark's heart thudded painfully in his chest as he gripped his children tightly, their small hands almost slipping from his grasp. Stay close. He yelled, scanning the chaotic scene unfolding around them. The boardwalk stretched endlessly, warped with distorted reflections of the twisted carnival attractions that loomed at the periphery. The laughter of children echoed, garbled and sinister, morphing into screams that chilled Mark's blood. Dad, I don't like this. Lily cried, her voice trembling. We have to keep moving. Mark shouted back, desperate to drown out the terror creeping into his family's hearts. The shadows behind them slithered into the doorway, furious howls rising to chase them, pulling at their heels. As they rushed down the boardwalk, illuminated only by flickering lights that buzzed erratically, Mark caught glimpses of figures out of the corners of his eyes. Faces twisted in agony, eyes wide with fear. It felt like a gallery of despair. He stumbled, and the darkness surged closer, purple and black tendrils almost snagging his ankles. "Run! Don't look back!" he shouted, fear spreading like fire in his veins. They sprinted past stalls selling rotten candy and broken toys, the distant carnival music warping into a haunting melody. Sarah screamed, pointing down a side path. "There! Towards the fun house!" A glimmer of hope ignited in Mark's chest. The fun house. Refuge. Or so he thought. Shadows swirled densely around its entrance, twisting and turning as if alive. A sign creaked overhead, its letters lighting up only to flicker out, spelling curses in the dim light. "And no. That's not safe." Ben whimpered, the fear palpable in his tiny voice, eyes wide as plates. "It's better than getting caught." Mark gritted through clenched teeth. He barely knew where they were running. If he could get them inside, perhaps they could find a way to escape the madness stalking them. They dashed inside, the door slamming shut with a bone-rattling thud behind them. Inside, the air was thick, laced with the scent of mildew and something foul, a sort of decay that made bile rise in Mark's throat. Mirrors distorted their reflections. Laughter bounced off the walls, mocking them, while the shadows seemed to dance and ripple. "Stay together," he hissed, tightening his grip on his children as they pressed deeper into the maze. The shadows ebbed and flowed, flickering at the edge of the mirrors, whispering secrets that wormed into Mark's mind. Then, a low voice broke through the taunting sounds. "Did you bring what you owe?" It slithered around him. He turned, heart racing, but saw nothing. "You cannot be free unless you pay your debts. What do you want?" Mark shouted, every ounce of courage flowing from his desperation. "Only what you are willing to give. Memories, fears, pieces of your mind." The voice chuckled darkly, sending chills through him. Mark felt the room spin. Memories flooded back, times of joy, moments of pain. Could he give any piece of that up? "We will not give anything," Sarah shouted, but Mark felt the weight of their choices bearing down on him. How much could they lose before they were nothing at all? The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of despair and agony as the shadows pressed in harder. Panic surged within Mark. He had to make a choice, and time was running out. "Mark! We can't stay here." Lily's voice quivered, grounding him in the chaos. As they turned, the mirrors shattered, sharp shards flying, and the shadows roared, hungry for sacrifice. With every heartbeat, the walls seemed to close in tighter. They could feel the darkness seep into them, their very identities at stake. And then, the whisper returned, softer but heavy with promise. "Sacrifice and you will know freedom." Caught between the shadows and the specter of their own fears, Mark realized that they could either face whatever lay beyond the mirrors or give in to the darkness consuming them. But could he afford to lose any part of his family? "Decide!" He shouted into the chaos, but the choice felt heavier than he could bear. As the shadows lunged, Mark steeled himself. The final question loomed: the price of survival or the price of their souls? What awaited them in the heart of that twisted funhouse, their salvation or their demise? The answer was hidden amidst the shattered glass and howls of curses, a truth waiting to unravel. The shadows surged, clawing at Mark like a pack of ravenous wolves. He yanked his children close, positioning their small bodies behind him as the howling laughter echoed from all directions. It twisted through the air, almost sentient, wrapping around their hearts. "Stay behind me," he shouted, feeling a primal urge to protect them. But doubt gnawed at his core. He could hear the whispers growing louder, detailing the darkness that wanted to claim them. Fractured reflections blinked back at them from the mirrors, showing his family, but these versions weren't right. Eyes filled with terror, mouths twisted in silent screams. In every direction, mirrors warped their forms, elongating their limbs and distorting their faces into ghastly parodies. With each echo, the shadows seemed to stretch closer, the air thickening with a palpable dread. Mark's breath hitched as he stumbled backward, pressing Sarah and Ben against the cold glass wall. "Dad, what do we do?" Ben's voice quavered, the tremor threatening to tear at Mark's resolve. Around them, the laughter erupted into a chorus, descending into chaotic cackles that resonated deep in his bones. Flickering lights cast eerie glows, revealing figures appearing and disappearing in the dark, a swirling mass of lost souls. Then the low voice slithered through the air again, it oozed with malice. "Sacrifice and set yourselves free." "No!" Mark yelled, fury igniting within him. He could feel the heat of their panic rising too. "We won't give you anything." Suddenly, the shadows lunged at them. A dark wave swept through the funhouse, and the ground beneath Mark's feet quaked, pulling him off balance. He fell, desperate hands grabbing at surfaces that dissolved into nothingness. "Get up! Run!" he barked, frantically scrambling to his feet. The mirrors cracked around them, a web of fractures spreading like an impending doom. The shards glinted ominously, threatening to shower them in slivers of despair. Smoke began to pour into the room, thick and suffocating. Mark coughed, fighting against the rising tide of fear. Panic clawed at him as he realized they had no time left. The walls were metaphorically closing in, he could feel the darkness pooling at his back. "Lily, Ben. Hold my hand!" Mark shouted, gripping their small arms. They stumbled forward, moving through the oppressive haze, racing against the laughter that bubbled around them. "Daddy, I'm scared." Lily's voice was barely a whisper, but it burned in his ears like a fire alarm that he kept moving. They dashed down a corridor that twisted unnaturally, curving into seemingly infinite directions, each step accompanied by the feeling of being watched. Distorted faces in the mirrors mocked him. Moments later, he felt a shadow brush his neck and a chill raced down his spine. "Mark! There! An exit!" Sarah pointed, a desperate light glinted in her eyes. Mark turned, but before he could take another step, the shadows swirled violently, and one of the mirrors shattered outward, sending a flurry of glass toward them. The walls reverberated with the haunting laughter, vibrating in his bones. "Run!" he screamed, flinging his children toward what he hoped was safety. As they dashed for the exit, he could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon him, the shadows feeding off the fear, hungry and longing. Just as they reached the door, it slammed shut, a cruel mockery of hope. The laughter crescendoed, enveloping them. "Remember, every choice carries a price." Mark hit the door with desperation. "No! Let us out!" He reared back, confused, scared, and furious all at the same time. The door shook violently, as if an invisible force pushed against it. Screams echoed from beyond, mingling with his own as darkness pawed at the edges of their consciousness, probing and scraping like claws down a chalkboard. In that suffocating moment, Mark felt another surge of fear, a realization that they were not alone. Something shifted within the shadows, something darker than he had ever faced. "Let us go!" he roared, but the chilling laughter only intensified. With every ounce of strength, he bellowed. "We will not become your sacrifice." But then came a horrifying answer, a whisper that coiled around them like smoke. "You have already offered yourself." At that moment, an overwhelming cold coursed through them, and the darkness thickened. An ancient truth loomed just ahead, waiting to be unearthed. What were the memories they could still grasp, and would it be enough to break the chains of despair? The clock was ticking, and outside, the darkness beckoned. What lay beyond the door, and what choices awaited them in the creeping shadows that seemed destined to engulf their very souls? The door loomed before them, an impenetrable barrier against the encroaching terror. Mark slammed his fists against the cold surface, desperation clawing at him. Each thud sent echoes vibrating through the air, fading beneath the sinister laughter that ricocheted around them. He glanced back at Sarah and Ben, eyes wide, fear dancing on their faces. Lily clung to his side, her tiny fingers trembling. "We have to think." Mark gasped, trying to drown out the chaos. "We can't just stand here. Nothing's happening. Please." Ben whimpered, tears glistening in his eyes. The laughter crescendoed, filling the air like a taunt, as shadows writhed, pushing closer, glistening with malicious intent. They beckoned, whispering promises of escape that twisted in Mark's mind like poison ivy. "Mark." Sarah tugged at him, her voice sharp. "We can't stay here. Look." A shadow flickered near the walls, shifting like smoke. It coalesced into something vaguely human, a figure of darkness, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. With every breath, the room tightened, suffocating, and the air turned frigid, wrapping around them like barbed wire. "Sacrifice," it hissed, an echo of the earlier words. "You must pay the price." "Shut up!" Mark shouted, feeling rage fuel his fear. He felt protective instincts firing in his veins. "You won't take us." The darkness rolled with laughter, a terrible symphony of glee that stirred the earth beneath their feet. One of the mirrors nearest to them rippled, distorting the reflection. It showed a family, but not theirs. It was another, a family trapped in a torment that mirrored their own, eyes full of despair, mouth stretched wide in screams. His heart pounded harder, a drum echoing in the pit of his stomach. What happened to them? His thoughts raced. Could this be their future? Mark Ben's whisper quaked through the tension. There's got to be a way out. Suddenly, the laughter faded, replaced by a low thrum, pulsating against his chest. It vibrated through the air, building intensity, and the shadows seemed to momentarily recede. Mark seized the moment. This way. He pulled them deeper into the chaos, navigating the shifting halls, dodging the shards of glass that glittered like teeth lining a monstrous mouth. With renewed vigor, they sprinted towards the flickering lights at the end of a corridor. What felt like safety glimmered faintly ahead, but the shadows erupted at their heels, clawing, tearing at Mark's resolve. Each step felt like running against a tidal wave, pushing him closer to surrender. Then, without warning, a figure stumbled from an adjacent passage, a thin, broken man with wild eyes and a tattered shirt. "Don't go in there!" he shouted, fear dripping from him like sweat. "They'll claim you." "Who?" Mark barked, confusion splintering through his fear. "What do you mean?" "The mirrors, they show you what you want." The man shrieked, collapsing against a wall. "But they take your soul in return. You'll be lost forever." Mark's heart raced. They needed to escape, but the darker truth was unspooling what awaited them on the other side. Would they emerge whole, or become one more echo bound to the shadows? Without a second thought, he replied, "We won't be lost." As they reached the end of the corridor, Mark forced himself to open the door at the end, hands shaking with dread and bravery. They needed to find out what lay beyond this nightmare. The door creaked slowly, painfully, revealing glimmers of light that barely penetrated the suffocating darkness swelling behind them. The man's breaking voice echoed in his mind, mixing with the laughter that now seemed to be an unholy chorus. Then came a soft whisper, almost against his ear, "You can't escape, not yet." Through the doorway, a vast expanse waited, cloaked in eerie light. The shadows writhed beyond, seeming to beckon. What awaited them deeper into the unknown? What price would they truly have to pay to see the light? They stepped inside, uncertainty clinging to their skin like a shroud. The room beyond the door expanded into a nightmarish landscape, shimmering beneath a ghostly light that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Mark hesitated, his heart racing as he caught glimpses of shifting shapes within the shadows. Each flicker sent jolts of panic through him. The laughter still echoed behind them, a haunting reminder of their pursuers. Sarah's voice trembled, breaking the eerie silence that had enveloped them. Her pale face glistened with fear, mirroring the horror that gripped him. "What now?" I don't know," he stammered, his breathing growing shallow. He scanned the vast expanse, searching for anything resembling an escape. The light was too bright yet choked with darkness, the kind that sent a chill racing up his spine. Lily tugged on his shirt, her little fingers cold like ice against his skin. "Daddy, I don't like it here, please, can we go back?" "Back?" The word felt like an anchor dragging him into despair. He turned. The door they had just come through had already become a distant memory, consumed by the shadows. They would never return. "Look!" Ben pointed towards a collection of mirrors jutting out from the walls, their surfaces rippling, as if a storm raged beneath them. That S where we should go." "No!" Sarah snapped. The man said enough. Mark interjected, desperation pushing him to decide. "We can't stand here. We have to try." He took a deep breath, shoving down the cold hand of panic tightening around his throat. As they approached the mirrors, their reflections warped and bent, distorting their shapes until they barely looked human. Mark stepped closer, hypnotized by flickering images that promised a glimpse into what could be. Happy moments, laughter-filled gatherings, the life he once knew. "What if it can show us the way out?" Ben pressed, hope glinting in his eyes. "Maybe we can use it." Mark nodded, a spark igniting deep within. "All right, let us see if we can find a door." But as they gathered around, the whispers in the air grew louder, curling around their minds like smoke. Faces appeared within the glass, pleading, their eyes hollow and sunken. Mark recoiled. It was one thing to see those trapped by shadows, it was another to look into the eyes of those who had surrendered. "Sacrifice," the voice slithered through the air again, dripping with menace. "You must pay." "No!" screamed Sarah, stepping back, terror spilling from her. "We can't trade anything." Ignoring the mounting dread, Mark pressed forward until he touched the surface of a nearby mirror. It pulsed, alive beneath his fingers. An immediate chaos swirled in the reflection, showing him a version of himself broken, defeated, eyes forever haunted. "What is it?" Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. They want something," Mark murmured, realizing the danger was not just in the dark. "They want to trade something of ours." Suddenly, the mirrors shattered, shards raining down, reflecting a million different realities. With each piece falling, a scream erupted, a chorus of agony that reverberated through the air, lost souls trapped within. "There's no way out." Ben shouted, panic tightening his chest. "Step aside." Mark yelled, pushing forward, heart pounding in his ears. He could see them now, shadows emerging from the shards. They flowed toward him like smoke, whispering promises. "Join us," they hissed, reaching out with elongated fingers, pulling him into darkness. "Mark!" his family cried, their voices fading against the tide of terror. He staggered back, adrenaline surging as he fought against the pulling urge that tugged at his very soul. Struggling, he turned to his family. "We need to fight. Together." Just as the whispers grew louder, a figure flickered into existence, a woman, sorrowful and elegant, eyes imploring. "You cannot succeed without sacrifice," she warned, her voice calm yet urgent. "Who are you?" he yelled against the encroaching shadows. "What do you want from us?" But before she could respond, the darkness enveloped them like a thick shroud, pulling them into a deeper abyss, each moment stretching. Mark felt despair crawling. Under his skin, what price were they truly willing to pay? Suddenly, everything went black. When the shadows receded, a different mirror loomed before them, pristine and glowing, a portal of light beckoning them closer. But behind them, the laughter roared back, louder than ever. "Go!" he shouted to his family as the dark figures stirred again, eyes glinting with hunger. Will they reach the light, or will the shadows consume them forever? The choice became urgent, terrifying, a race against time and fate. "Make your choice." The whispers echoed, probing the depths of Mark's will. How far would he go to save them? Mark lunged toward the glowing portal, his family pushing in behind him. The laughter of the shadows clawed at their backs, a sinister cacophony promising doom. With each second that ticked by, the light dimmed, as if it too was afraid of the encroaching darkness. "Now!" he screamed, desperation fueling his voice. They surged forward, breaking into a sprint as cold fingers brushed against them, leaving trails of ice along their skin. Lily's small hand was slipping from his grasp, her terrified cries echoing in the air. "No! Hold on to me!" He grabbed her tight, pulling her closer as he neared the portal. Shards of glass continued to crash to the ground, each shattering a memory of happiness, each reflection of their former selves consumed by the shadows. With a final, wrenching effort, they hurled themselves into the light. For a split second, everything was serene. The brightness enveloped them, overwhelming and warm, contrasting starkly against the dark void they had escaped. But that comfort was short-lived. They tumbled through the light and landed on hard, splintered wood like falling into the eye of a storm only to have it rage around them. The familiar scent of saltwater greeted Mark, an unrelenting whisper of normalcy. The sound of waves crashing nearby was soothing. "We're safe," he gasped, looking at his family. But the moment didn't last. The boardwalk stretched like an arm into an endless ocean, warped shadows dancing on the surface. It felt wrong, alive and twisted, as though the wood itself was breathing. But worse, it was the laughter. It was back, echoing across the space, louder and more euphoric. What happened? Sarah's face was a mask of confusion and terror as she looked from Mark to the unmistakable horizon that teetered between dark and light. "I don't know." Mark shot a look over his shoulder. They were alone. "Where's the portal? Maybe we should go back." Ben suggested hesitantly, eyes wide as he gulped. Mark shook his head, heart hammering. "We can't. We have to keep moving." He felt the weight of anxiety compressing against his chest, urgency thrumming in his veins. "We can't let them find us again." With resolve, they started their uneasy trek along the boardwalk. The laughter faded but left behind a throbbing pulse in the air. Each creak of the wooden pathway beneath them felt foreboding, a reminder of the darkness lurking just out of sight. "I don't like it here," whispered Lily, her wide eyes scanning the shadows stretching along the edges of the boardwalk. Mark saw her trembling frame and squeezed her hand tighter, trying to shield her from the growing fear that threatened to overwhelm them all. As they walked, the atmosphere began to shift. With every step, the emotion beneath their feet thickened. It was as if the boardwalk was soaked in despair. Glances exchanged spoke of unspoken fears, there was dread in the air that clung to their skin like sweat. "Let's check out that shack," Ben said, pointing to a dilapidated structure looming at the edge of the boardwalk. "Maybe there's something inside." The thought unsettled Mark, but they had little choice. They needed information, a way out, anything to quell the mounting dread. The door creaked open, and they stepped inside, a suffocating darkness engulfing them once more. The inside was filled with dust and whispering shadows. "Look," Sarah pointed at the walls lined with photos-worn pictures of families that stared back at them with hollow eyes, expressions forever frozen in fear. They look like us." Mark's stomach dropped. This wasn't a mere coincidence. It was like a reflection of what could be, what could happen to them if they weren't careful. "Every one of them," he murmured, stepping closer. "Caught in the same fate." Suddenly, the laughter roared outside, rattling the shack. Shadows flickered in the corners, and the temperature dropped, plunging the air into icy shards. "Get ready!" Mark shouted, grabbing his family tightly. "They're coming for us." But before he could think to escape, the door slammed shut, sealing them within. The laughter transformed into whispers, echoing around them like a swarm of angry bees, a torrent of voices demanding a trade they couldn't comprehend. In that moment, a truth struck him cold. What had they stumbled into? What price were they truly being asked to pay? With fear racing in his heart, Mark turned to face his family, and together they braced themselves for whatever came next. Would they become another pair of eyes staring back from the walls of horror? Or would they find a way to break the cycle before it was too late? A crash echoed behind them, and the floorboards splintered, revealing a gaping abyss. Run! Mark didn't need to be told twice. Adrenaline surged through him as he yanked open the flimsy door, its rusty hinges creaking ominously in protest. The corridor leading outside felt like the gaping maw of some grotesque beast, threatening to swallow them whole. Go! He barked, shoving Ben and Sarah forward, urgency pulsing in every word. Lily clung to him like a lifeline, her breath hitching with each step. Outside, the laughter was gone, replaced by a chilling silence that made Mark's skin crawl. The boards creaked underfoot, each sound echoing unsettlingly into the night. He scanned the area, heart racing, searching for signs of the shadows that had pursued them. They're coming. Ben warned, his eyes darting toward the shack, where dark shapes twisted and coiled like smoke at the windows. Not that way. Mark pulled his family toward the edge of the boardwalk. The ocean roared below, waves crashing against the pylons, as if they were a living part of the haunting landscape. The sound was enraging, relentless, drowning out their fear. What do we do? Sarah's voice trembled, her grip on Ben tightening as he stumbled. Find something to defend ourselves with. Mark shouted. Panic seeped into his mind, threatening to tear him apart. He rummaged through debris littering the boardwalk, his fingers brushing against a rusted pipe that had broken off some derelict structure. He shoved it into his waistband, readying himself for whatever might come. Glancing back, he saw Lily standing by the shack, frozen in place, her small body silhouetted against the faint glow illuminating from inside. Lily. He reached out, voice cracking with desperation. Come on. But she didn't move. Instead, her gaze was fixed on the door that creaked ominously open and shut, as if beckoning her to return. Lily. Mark's voice was now raw. The shadows inside seemed to reach for her, and he felt a surge of rage and fear. He sprinted toward her, yanking her away from the pull of the dark. Once he was close enough, he could feel it, something icy, something wrong. A chill that twisted around the very air they breathed, suffocating and heavy. Do you hear that? He whispered, scanning the dim landscape. The laughter returned, a menacing sound that echoed from various points along the boardwalk, surrounding them, closing in. No longer confined to just their past, it was alive. It seemed to know them, to revel in their despair. We have to. Mark started, but a series of loud thumps behind them interrupted. The wood splintered, and he turned just in time to see the shadows spill out from the shack, grotesque forms writhing and twisting toward them. Run! They're getting closer. Sarah yelled, shoving Ben to move faster. But Mark hesitated, staring at the horror funneling into the open air. One shadow detached itself from the rest, its movement fluid and predatory. Mark's heart fell into his stomach as it morphed into a distorted figure, half-formed memories of fear and anguish swirling within its depths. Was that a reflection of him? Keep moving. He bellowed, breaking free from the spellbinding grip of the figure. The family bolted down the boardwalk, desperately searching for a way to escape. The shadows were relentless. They pursued like a pack, hungry and unyielding. The air felt electrified, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart under their onslaught. Their feet pounded against the wood, Mark's breath coming in ragged gasps, each one pulling them closer to an unknown fate. Just as they reached the end of the boardwalk, a flicker of dim light appeared in the distance, suspended over a massive rock formation jutting out from the shore. Look! There! Ben pointed, hope glinting in his eyes. But just as they approached the edge, the abyss below deepened, an endless chasm that swallowed the noise of the ocean. What if it's a trap? Sarah cried, hesitating. Mark felt the chill creeping back into his bones, the laughter ratcheting higher. We're out of options. He shouted, pushing everyone toward the shimmering light. They needed to leap, to trust that whatever was waiting on the other side could be their salvation or their doom. with a quick glance back at the shadows now circling ominously behind them, Mark took Lily's hand tightly. On 3. 1 2 Suddenly, a dark whirlwind erupted behind them, the shadows lunging forward as they screamed in terror. 3. They leaped together, arms outstretched into the brilliance of the light only to be met with an ear-splitting roar, signaling the end of one nightmare and the beginning of another. What horror awaited them on the other side? The world exploded into brilliant chaos as Mark, Sarah, and the kids sailed through the portal of light. For a nanosecond, there was silence. Everything felt suspended, untouched by darkness. But clarity crashed back like a tidal wave, throwing them into a new reality. Mark hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs, and the familiar scent of the ocean hit him like a warm embrace. Waves washed ashore, bubbling with a strange energy. "Is this the beach?" Ben gasped, wide-eyed. Mark struggled to his feet, his heart thrumming violently. "Look around. We're back." But this place was different. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow, and shadows lingered in the distance like specters tracing their movements. An instinctual chill ran down Mark's spine, and he felt the laughter echoing across the sand, a cruel reminder of what was behind them. "Where's the exit?" Sarah's voice trembled, urgency cracking through her calm facade. Mark scanned their surroundings. They were standing on a deserted stretch of sandy beach parallel to the boardwalk but somehow, off. The familiar few buildings were twisted, warped reflections of their former selves. "Seems like we might still be entwined with the shadows. We can't lose our resolve. We need to find a way to seal whatever's following us." Suddenly, Lily shrieked, pointing at something behind them. "Look! The shack!" Mark turned, and there it was, the dilapidated structure they had just fled from, now perched threateningly on the edge of the beach. Dark figures coiled around it like snakes, whispering promises that tugged at his sanity. "This is a trick," he shouted, pulling his family behind him. "We're not going back." Dread coiled in the pit of his stomach as the air thickened. Shadows were leaking from the shack, dark goo pooling and cascading like tar. "Mark!" Sarah tugged at his arm, her eyes wide with fear. "They're coming." Their only choice was to fight back. Mark felt a rush of resolve flood over him. "Listen," he said urgently, gripping their hands. "We can't let them take us. What we have to do now is reclaim our courage. This time, no sacrifices." But what if? Lily's voice faltered, a tangible vulnerability lurking in her words. "No what-ifs." Mark snapped, trying to sound braver than he felt. "We have our memories. The moments we all share, those are what we hold on to. That's what they want, and we want to let them." As shadows surged toward them, swelling like a dark tide, Mark held his ground, lifting the rusted pipe he had found earlier. "We're going to fight. The stories we told. The park we knew." Sarah chimed in, gathering strength from her family's togetherness. "All those funny moments, the good times, the warmth we felt as a family. Remind yourself who you are." Mark felt the whispered shadows reaching, grasping, but their hands didn't touch him any longer. They felt weak now. It was like he could see their purpose flickering, growing less substantial as they banded together. "Feel it," he yelled at his family. "Remember how much we love each other." A massive swell of warmth broke through the darkness, the family's voices weaving together in a harmony of strength. Memories poured out, threaded with laughter and hope, a confetti of their lives dazzling against the dark. The shadows hissed, recoiling, confused. "You dare defy us?" A rasping voice snarled, crashing against their collective will with furious energy. "Yes," Mark bellowed, shaking the pipe. "We won't give up." The shadows surged again, but this time, junior spirits of their memories swarmed in response, circling them like a protective barrier. Everything brightened as light began to pulse from their hearts, a beacon igniting the air around them, intertwining with joy and life. Together, Ben shouted, and they held hands tighter, ready to push against this darkness once and for all. A wave of blinding light blazed from their bond, crashing into the shadows. The laughter twisted, shrieking as if scorched, and the dark figures contorted, trying to escape. No! You cannot escape the legacy. They howled, the shadows becoming mere wisps as the brilliant light grew stronger. Mark and his family were propelled forward, living, breathing, shouting triumph as the shadows began to fall away. They poured strength into each other, amplifying all they had fought for, all they cherished until, with a final, deafening roar, the darkness exploded into 1,000 points of light, dissolving into smoke that scattered like ashes across the beach. Panting, Mark turned to see his family standing wide-eyed and trembling, wonder shaping their features. They were free. The shack had vanished, along with the sinister echoes of laughter that had haunted them. "We did it!" Lily squealed, jumping in delight, her eyes sparkling. "Yes," Sarah breathed, laughter mingling with tears. "We found our way back." They stood, basking in the warm glow of the descending sun, realizing they had reclaimed not just their safety but their power to weave through fear and emerge unbroken. No longer trapped in tales of terror, but bound by love, a force stronger than any shadow. "Let us go home," Mark whispered, feeling the ocean breeze wash over them, knowing they were forever bound to the light. As they turned away from the defeated darkness, a spark of hope ignited in their hearts, a promise that their story wasn't over yet, but just beginning. Now, as we wrap up this thrilling journey, remember the power of support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any more exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help keep these stories alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this wild conclusion. And for real, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story wraps up. Your support is crucial. Send the love.